Gordon was on his way back to Tidmouth Sheds. This was the mountainous part of the island with lots of passes and tunnels. As he went through one of the passes, his weight dislodged a number of rocks onto the track below. Steaming round the bend, he saw the rocks late, applied his brakes, but couldn't stop. Gordon hit the rocks and derailed, hitting the side of the tunnel. His driver got word back to the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre. Harold the helicopter took off to make the short flight over the mountains to look at Gordon. His mission was to decide upon the best way to rescue him. Harold loved hovering over Sodor. Very soon he saw Gordon far below and went down to have a closer look. "Don't worry, Gordon," Harold shouted. "We'll soon have you back on the track." And with that he climbed high into the air and started his return back to the Search and Rescue Centre. Harold radioed ahead with his report, and as he landed, Thomas, who was the search and rescue duty engine today, was already getting Rocky the crane out of his shed. He coupled Rocky up to him and set off to find Gordon. Thomas and Rocky eventually arrived, but because Gordon was blocking the track, Thomas had to back Rocky up. Gordon was relieved to see them. Rocky got into position and swung his arm out over Gordon. He lowered his magnetic grab until it attached itself to Gordon. Rocky then heaved with all his might and gradually lifted the front part of Gordon and placed him back on the rails. "Thank you, Rocky," said Gordon as he backed away from the rockfall. Rocky returned his lifting arm back to the car. Jack arrived and started clearing the rocks from the track. Very soon the track was clear and Gordon could continue on his journey. Thomas and Rocky also started their return to the Search and Rescue Centre. Gordon was very careful on the mountain passes now, and Thomas and Rocky were delighted to have helped their friend. Thomas returned Rocky to his shed, and the Search and Rescue Centre was ready and on standby to help others in trouble. It was raining. In fact, it was quite a storm. Captain, the Sodor lifeboat, was sheltering in his dock at the Search and Rescue Centre when he got a message that a boat had drifted onto the rocks near the Sodor lighthouse. Luckily, the passengers had been able to scramble out before the boat turned onto its side, but they now needed rescuing from the lighthouse. Captain set out from the shelter of his little dock into the wind, rain and waves. He was used to the rough sea. Most of his rescues were in these conditions. A few years ago there would have been a lighthouse keeper at the lighthouse to give the boat's passengers some protection, but it was now a fully automatic lighthouse, no lighthouse keeper. Captain battled through the waves and eventually arrived close to the lighthouse. He pulled alongside the rocks in a sheltered stretch of water, and all the boat's passengers were able to climb aboard him. With everyone safe, he moved away from the rocks and started the voyage back to the shelter and safety of his dock at the Search and Rescue Centre. When he arrived, the passengers climbed ashore and thanked Captain for being so brave. Thomas arrived with Annie and Clarabel to take the passengers to the main search and rescue building where they could get dry before being taken back to their homes. The storm carried on for quite a while, but everyone was safe and the Search and Rescue Centre was again on standby to help anyone in trouble. Sodor's Search and Rescue Centre was on standby to help anyone in trouble. Harold had just taken off to go on one of his routine patrols. It was a nice clear day on Sodor and flying was easy. Just then, he got a call to say that a house in a nearby village was on fire. Harold was quite close to the village and quickly arrived to get a good look at the extent of the fire, while the Search and Rescue Centre prepared Flynn and Belle for action. "Don't worry," he shouted, "Flynn and Belle are on their way." The people told Harold that nobody was inside the building, which was a relief. Harold returned to the centre and landed just as Flynn burst through his shed doors, sirens blazing, quickly followed by Belle from her shed. They raced each other through the country and into the village. Flynn and Belle got into position and pointed their water hoses at the fire. They quickly put out the fire to the cheer of the crowd that had gathered. The roof continued to smoulder a little from the heat, but the fire was out and the engines prepared to return to base. Flynn backed up to let Belle leave first, and he followed her away to another cheer from the crowd. The engines made it back to the centre in good time, returned to their sheds, and the Search and Rescue Centre was again on standby, ready to help anyone in trouble. It was a lovely spring day on Sodor, and James was busy moving cargo between two stations all day. His route took him around the Sodor Lake. What James didn't know was that because there had been a lot of snow on Sodor that winter, the melting snow had saturated the land and the gravel underneath the track by the lake was moving. Slowly, but moving. Every time James went by, the gravel moved a bit more. Finally, the moving gravel caused the track to part. James noticed the split in the track. He applied his brake, but too late. He derailed. "Thank goodness I didn't fall in the lake like Duncan's elephant did," said James. His driver put him in reverse to get back on the rail, but oh no, that only made things worse. He toppled over into the lake and a wave washed over him. "Oh, my lovely shiny red paintwork." His driver radioed the search and rescue centre and told them the problem. The duty engine for the day, Thomas, coupled up to Rocky the rescue crane and set out to help get James back on the rails again. When he arrived, Rocky immediately swung into action. His magnetic grab attached itself to James, and with a big pull, James was lifted back onto the rails. "My, look at your paintwork, James." James thanked Rocky and quickly backed away, turned around at the junction and went off in the direction of the engine wash. Sir Topham Hatt arrived in his car. "Good work, Rocky," he said. "Now we just need to mend that track. I'll get Chuck from the digging rigs crew to bring some gravel over straight away." And off went Sir Topham Hatt. At the gravel yard, Chuck prepared to load up, but the gravel started coming out of the hopper too soon. "Stop!" shouted Chuck. And it did. The gravel was cleared, and he backed under the hopper. Gravel production began again. Fairly soon Chuck was full, and off he went. He soon reached Rocky. Rocky lifted the track, Chuck backed up and tipped the gravel. Jack then spread the gravel out and Rocky lowered the track, with Jack moving it into its final place. Sir Topham Hatt had returned to thank everyone for such a speedy repair. When Thomas and Rocky left, they just had time to test the repaired track out before returning to the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre. Thanks for watching our story. To see more, please click on any of these short clips, and if you haven't already subscribed, go on, do so now. See you soon.